Now, unlike you lucky lot, when I moved here 21 years ago, YouTube didn't exist. In actual fact, I arrived here in Spain 1 month before YouTube launched. But you guys have the luxury of being able to navigate and get all the information about Spain before you decide to make the move. However, the videos that I see on YouTube often are quite glamorous. They show you the beautiful things about Spain. They don't necessarily give you the things that I didn't know about until I arrived here. So in today's video, I'm going to give you all the things that I found after my 20 plus years here. And hopefully that's going to help you make that decision with a little bit more thought and clarity. Okay, the first point I want to talk about is the heat, because here in Spain, particularly in southern Spain, in June, July and August, there's no other way to put it other than it's brutal. Now, when the tourists come here, they experience a week, 2 weeks of air-conditioned hotels, air-conditioned rooms at night while they're sleeping, you know, having their breakfast in an air-conditioned hotel, then going to the beach for a few hours, dipping in and out the sea every time they get hot. And that's lovely, but the reality of conducting an everyday life here, working and having to do the normal tasks, the same as you do in the UK, but with 40-degree heat on you, is completely different from that tourist version. So this is something that you really need to consider. Now, I know people, myself included, that during June, July and August, we would absolutely love to be able to escape Spain, maybe get to the UK, but, you know, it's not possible for us. We live here, we've got full-time lives here, but the brutal truth is that the heat will kill you. And this is something that you genuinely need to consider if you're thinking about southern Spain as the place that you want to move to. Now, Spain is a wonderful place to live, but it isn't an easy place to earn a living. It really is very difficult. Now, there are no careers for foreigners here. You know, I see many posts on some of the Spanish Facebook groups that I belong to, where people are saying, oh, I work in this field, I want to move to Spain, where can I find a job? And the best thing to do is just simply forget about it. When you see foreigners here working in Spain, they're typically in commission-only roles. They're the kinds of jobs that dominate. For example, real estate is by far the most popular sort of work that foreigners work in. But they're using their own car, they're using their own fuel, they're often using their own phone. So, and there's no basic salary 9 times out of 10 to fall back on. So if you're one of those people who think, you know, that the job market here in Spain is similar to the UK, it really isn't. It's the polar opposite. Then, of course, you've got those that are a little bit more entrepreneurial and they think about coming to Spain and set up a business. Now, that probably is the best idea out of the two, because if you're looking for work, you're not going to find it. But setting up a business here in Spain is nothing at all like the UK. It's extremely time consuming and it is extremely costly. So think about both these things before you arrive, because I've seen many expats arrive in Spain. They've come with their savings, they've spent their savings in a year or two, and they've been left with no choice but to have to move back simply because they wasn't able to earn a living. Now, this one I'm sure you've all thought about, and that is missing family and friends. And believe me, it's harder than you think. You will miss people. You'll miss people every single day. And the real truth is you don't actually realise that until something happens and you're not back home to be able to be there at that exact moment. And even after 21 years, this one still hits me every single week. So please take that into consideration. I know a lot of people's, you know, in their mind, it's like, well, it's only a 3-hour plane journey, but it's not. You know, it's the drive to the airport, it's arriving at the airport 2 hours before your flight, it's then the flight, then it's the travelling to where you're going. For example, when I get a flight back to the UK to see my family, I have to write off anywhere between 9 to 12 hours just to go and see them. So that is one of the things, and probably the single hardest thing about living in Spain, is that you will miss people. And like I say, when something happens, no matter how big or small it is, but you really need to be there, or you really want to be there, you simply can't get there like that. And that is something that I think many people overlook. Now, I'm sure you've all heard the term of expat bubbles. These bunches of foreigners, often from the same country, that will live in close proximity to each other, and they never really mingle with Spanish people. And there is a genuine reason for that, and that is because the Spanish social life is almost impossible to break into. Now, when I first moved to Spain, as I mentioned in another video, I was seeing a Spanish girl at the time, so I automatically got sucked into friendships with her friends and her friends' boyfriends and husbands, etc. But that's quite rare. So if you're coming here, say as a single English person, or as I don't know, maybe a married couple, breaking into those Spanish social circles is extremely difficult. And I think this is why so many people stay in those expat bubbles. There's various reasons, and one of them, of course, is the language, which I'll get onto in a moment. But yeah, breaking into those Spanish social circles, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is extremely difficult. A lot of the Spanish have had friendships since childhood, and they rarely expand on them. They'll be polite and they'll be welcoming and they'll talk to you and they'll wish you good day and all of those things. But to really gain Spanish friendships is extremely difficult. So one of the things that I see a lot is, particularly I get a lot of comments on my videos from my Spanish viewers that say, oh, the English, they won't integrate and they stay in their own little bubbles. And they're absolutely right, they do. And maybe a lot of those Spaniards would welcome the English into their friendship groups. But for the most part, it is extremely difficult, extremely difficult. So bear that in mind as well, because if you've got this fantasy that you're going to live in maybe a small Spanish village and you're going to be best friends with all the Spanish, it's probably not going to happen. And I think that's why these expat communities or these expat bubbles exist, because you've basically got people from your own background all in the same scenario. And many of them may have come here and, again, had this fantasy of becoming best friends with, Juan and Cristina. But those bubbles really help people settle in, and it gives them a social life that they probably wouldn't have had otherwise. The language barrier is 100% more isolating than anyone will ever tell you. In rural Andalusia, for example, here, you will be humbled immediately, even if you've got, an intermediate amount of Spanish. I speak to many of the locals here in this village, and I'm going to be honest, I probably sometimes only get 75, 80% of what they're saying, because their accent is just enough alone to defeat you. It's completely different in some of these Andalusian villages, say, to the accent in, Castilla-La Mancha or in Madrid or somewhere like that. So, as always, this is something that I promote all the time to people that are thinking about moving to Spain, and that is learn the language as best as you possibly can before you come. Try to watch Spanish television or listen to Spanish radio or watch Spanish movies so you can kind of work out all the different accents, because the best way to look at it is, let's imagine you live in the UK. You know the difference between a Liverpudlian accent and a London accent, or a Geordie accent and a Glaswegian accent, and even if you're English, those accents in England sometimes can throw you. I know when I've spoken to people from Glasgow, I've often not understood everything they've said. So imagine that exact scenario, but in a foreign language. So this is something that, again, many people overlook. They come here, they've maybe got an intermediate amount of Spanish, and then when you're dropped in the middle of a Spanish village with this raw country accent, you're going to feel really defeated. And the last one I want to go over, and I know you've seen and heard this one 1,000 times if you've genuinely been looking or considering moving to Spain, and that is the way the systems here work. I'm talking about the tax system, the bureaucracy, the admin side of things, because nothing, and I mean nothing, works the way that you expect it to. And to put that into some sort of reality for you, something in the UK that could literally take 2 hours can take you weeks here. And it is genuinely something that you will never understand. It's something that you're never going to get used to. It's something that is always going to frustrate you. And at times it's enough just to make you say, sod it, I'm going home. I mean, it really can be that bad. So again, if you are seriously considering making the move here, the only thing I can say is have patience and don't even try to question the way it is, because it just is. Look, I'll be real with you. I didn't make this video to put you off of Spain. I made it because I wish I would have had access to this sort of information before I made the move here. We love our life here, genuinely we do. But I moved here quite naively 20 years ago, and most of the information I've given you in this video completely blindsided me when I arrived. Now, if you're seriously thinking about making this move, then subscribe to my channel, because this is exactly what this channel is about. It's not the highlight reel, and it's not the dream sold to you by someone with a real estate affiliate link. It's just me, a bloke in his 50s with his wife who made the exact same move that you're thinking about doing. Now, look, if any of this has resonated with you, I'm going to ask you to please hit that like button, because it genuinely helps more people just like you find this video. And frankly, more people need access to this information before they pack up their lives and get on that plane. Also, I want to know, if you've already made the move, which one of these points that I've gone over in today's video hit you the hardest? Or if you haven't made the move, which one do you think will hit you hardest? Let me know in the comments, because I read every single one and I do reply. Anyway, enjoy whatever you're doing for the rest of the day, and I'll catch you in the next one.